Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Cahyanti. I'm from A group. In this video, I'm going to discuss about analyzing and interpreting qualitative data. There are 6 steps in analyzing and interpreting qualitative data. The first step is organized data. Organized data is critical in qualitative research because of the large amount of information gathered during a study. The transcribing and organizing of information requires a system of organization which could take several forms, such as developing a metric or table, organizing the metric by type, all interviews, all observations, all documents, and all photograph or other visual material, and last is keeping duplicate copies of all forms of data. Here I will explain you about transcript data. Transcription is the process of converting audio tape recordings or footnotes into the text data. You can see at the figure 8.2 list suggestions for conducting a tape interview from the transcriptionist's point of view. You may use transcriptionists to type your text files, or you can transcribe the information yourself. In either case, for interview data, transcriptionists need special equipment to help create the transcript. This equipment consists of a machine that enables the transcriber to start and stop tape recordings or to play them at speed so that the transcriber can easily follow them. The next, analyze by hand or computer. The hand analysis of qualitative data means that researchers read the data, mark it by hand, and divide it into parts. Hand analysis may be preferred when you are analyzing a small database and can easily keep track of files and look at text passages. The next, not comfortable using computers or have not learned a qualitative computer software programs. So the next, want to be close to the data and have a hands or feet on field for it without intrusion of machine. So the last, have time to commit to a hand analysis, since it is labor-intensive activity to manually sort, organize, and look at words in the text database. Computer analysis of qualitative data means that researchers use a qualitative computer program to facilitate the process of storing, analyzing, sorting, and representing or visualizing the data. Use a computer program when you are analyzing a large database and need to organize and keep track of extensive information. So, adequately trained in using the program and are comfortable using computers, have sources to purchase a program or can look at one to use. So the next, need a close inspection of every word and sentence to capture specific quotes or meaning of passages. Use of qualitative computer program is a program that stores data, organizes your data, enables you to assign labels or codes to your data, and facilitates searching through your data and locating specific text or words. So the procedure of using software programs, the first is convert of word processing file into the text file. So select a computer program to use, enter file into the program and give it a name. So go through the file and write sentence or paragraphs of idea that pertain do what the participant is saying in the text. So the next is provide a code label for the block text. After plugging assign label to text, search for all text matching its code and print out the file of this passage. So the next, basic feature of software program. A design of software programs analyze their feature based on 8 major dimensions. You can see it at figure 8.3. Using information from this figure, your basic considerations are to find a program that is easy to use, that will separate your text files from transcript and your image from pictures. So, I will explain you about specific program available. Visiting website that advertise the program can enable you to access the various programs available and their features. For example, atlas.ti, Hyper Research, etc. So, the second step is explore and code the data. Explore the general sense of the data. The first step in data analysis is to explore the data. A preliminary exploratory analysis and qualitative research consists of exploring the data to obtain a general sense of the data, memoing ideas, thinking about the organization of the data, and considering whether you need more data. So, code the data. The further process of analyzing text or image in qualitative research begins when you code the data. Coding is the process of segmenting and labeling text to form descriptions and word terms in the data. Using a visual model like the one in figure, you can see at figure 8.4 will help you to learn this procedure. The object of the coding process is to make sense of text data, divide it into text or image segments, label the segment with codes, examine codes for overlap and redundancy, and collapse the codes into word terms. Several types are involved in coding data. Although there is no definite procedure, Creswell recommends the following step. The first step is get a sense of the whole. Pick one document and begin the process of coding the document. And the next will be presented by Liza Nur Alfina.
Okay, I will continue the discussion. The material is how use code to build description and themes. Nah, describing and developing themes from the data consists of answering the major research question and forming an in-depth understanding of the central phenomenon through description and thematic development. Not all qualitative projects include both description and themes, but all studies include at least themes. The first is description. Description is a detailed rendering of people, place, or event in a setting. In qualitative research, it is easy to start the analysis after the initial reading and coding of the data. In some form of qualitative research design, such as in ethnography or in case study, the researcher provides a considerable description of the setting. Developing detail is important, and the researcher analyzes data from all sources to build a portrait of individuals or something. Now, in providing detailed information, description can transport the reader to research to research a site or help the reader visualize a person. It takes experience and practice to describe detail in a setting. And then, by reading the short story or examining qualitative study, can find illustration where writer use detail to take an ordinary experience and transport you to the setting so that you can almost feel the situation. Nah, the second is themes. Themes. The use theme is another way to analyze qualitative data because similar themes are combined together to form the main idea in database. They form the core elements in qualitative data analysis. Like code, themes have labels that typically consist of on more than two or four words. Nah, there are several types of theme. The first is ordinary themes. It is themes that a researcher may want to find. For example, exposed to tobacco at school. And then the second is unexpected themes. It is themes that are surprised and not expected to surface during a study. For example, the use of school tobacco policy is not enforced. The third is hard to classify themes. Themes that contain ideas that do not easily fit into the themes of one person or that overlap with several themes. For example, students gather in the park. And the last is major and minor themes. It is themes that represent the major idea and the minor. Then one last thing to know about developing a theme is that you will reach a point where the theme is actually developed. A new evidence will not provide additional theme. Saturation is the point where you have identified a main themes and no new information can be added to the list of themes or to the details for an existing themes. And then layering and interrelating themes. Layering themes. Layering themes build on the idea of major and minor themes, but organize the themes into layers from basic elementary themes to more sophisticated. Layering the analysis means representing the data using interconnected level of themes. The number of layers may vary from 2 or 4 or 5, and recognize this layer will help you understand the use of theme in layering qualitative analysis. Nah, for example, you can see in your book page 256. Now, the author collects the data from several sources. The layer 1, the author collects the data from several sources. And then layer 2, analyze to develop a description of event. And then layer 3, from this description, they then form 5 themes. And the last layer is combine these themes into 2 broad perspectives. Nah, the next is interrelating themes. Interconnecting themes means that the researcher connect the themes to display chronology or sequence of events, such as when qualitative researcher generate a theoretical and conceptual model. And then the next material is represent and report finding. The first is representing finding. Now, qualitative research often display their finding visual by using figure or picture that augment the discussion. Different ways to display data are listed in here. The first is a comparison table. Create a visual image of the information in the form and a comparison table or metric, a table that compares group on one of the theme. The second is tree diagram. This diagram visually represents teams and their interconnection so that the teams are presented in order from the broad teams to the narrow teams. And then the third is draw a map. The authors provide the diagram so that readers could visualize where different activities happen. The last is a demographic table. Describe personal or demographic information for each person or site in the research. In a study of the type of technology used by instructor in college classroom, the researcher described each instructor and his or her primary delivery style in a demographic table. And then the last is reporting finding. Nah, the primary for representing and reporting finding in qualitative research is a narrative discussion. A narrative discussion is a written passage in a qualitative study in which authors summarize in detail the findings from their data analysis. There is no set for this narrative, which can vary widely from one study to another. However, it is helpful to identify some frequently used forms. Several of these forms have already been discussed, such as developing description, themes, or interconnecting themes. Other important, especially in advocacy and participatory form of qualitative inquiry, such as raising questions, challenging assumptions based on evidence supplied by participants, or reflecting on how participants change during the research. I think enough, and the next material will be presented by Emma.
Okay, my name is Oktafiyanti. I will continue the presenter about this material. The last material is how do you interpret findings? Interpretation in qualitative research means that the researchers step back and form some larger meanings about the phenomenon based on the personal views. Comparison with the past studies output. Qualitative research is interpretive research, and you will need to make sense of the finding. You will find this interpretation in a final section of a study under headings such as discussion, conclusion, interpretation, or implication. This section includes number 1 is a review of the major findings and how the research questions were answered. Number 2 is personal reflection of the researchers about the meaning of the data. Number 3 is personal views compared or contrasts with the literature. Number 4 is limitation of the study. Number 5 is suggestion for the future research. The point number 3 is make comparison to the literature. Interpretation may also contain reference to the literature and past studies. Similar to quantitative research, the qualitative inquiry interprets the data in view of this past research, showing how the finding may support or contradict prior studies output. This interpretation may compare qualitative finding with report views of a social science concept found in the literature, or it may combine personal views with an educational or social science term or idea. In qualitative study of sibling interaction between a young man with Down syndrome and his three brothers, the author Harry, Day, and Fritz conclude with interpretive comment about the inclusion of role in situations outside of the family setting. They relate their own views to those in the literature. We strongly believe, as does much literature on the topic, that the first requirement must be an inclusive and continuous school structure that keeps students with disabilities with their community and family peers from elementary school right through high school. The last point of the how do you interpret finding is over limitation and suggestion for future research. Also similar to quantitative research, the qualitative research suggests possible limitation or weakness of the study and makes recommendation for future research. This limitation may address problems in data collection, unanswered question by participants, or better selection of purposeful sampling of individuals or sites for the study. Implication for future research may include the use of the finding for practice or the need for further research. You might also state implication for decision making, such as planning for new practice or for the audience you identified in the introduction to your study. The next material is how do you validate the accuracy of your finding. This is the last material. Validating findings means that the researchers determine the accuracy or credibility of the finding through strategies such as member checking or triangulation. Several qualitative researchers have addressed this idea, and qualitative research do not typically use the word bias in researchers. They will say that all research is interpretive and that the researcher should be self-reflective about his or her role in the research, how he or she is interpreting the finding, and his or her personal and political history that shapes his interpreting. The last point of the how do you interpret finding is over limitation and suggestion for future research. Also similar to quantitative research, the qualitative research suggests possible limitation or weakness of the study and makes recommendation for future research. This limitation may address problems in data collection, unanswered question by participants, or better selection of purposeful sampling of individuals or sites for the study. Implication for future research may include the use of the finding for practice or the need for further research. You might also state implication for decision making, such as planning for new practice or for the audience you identified in the introduction. The last material is how do you validate the accuracy of your findings. Validating findings means that the researchers determines of the accuracy or credibility of the findings through strategies such as member checking or triangulation. Several qualitative researchers have addressed this idea. Qualitative researchers do not typically use the word bias in research. They will say that all research is interpreted and that the researcher should be self-reflective about his or her role in the research, how he or she is interpreting the finding, and his or her personal and political history that shapes his or her interpretation. This accuracy or credibility of the findings is of utmost importance. There are various terms that qualitative researchers use to describe this accuracy or credibility. Our attention here will be on three primary forms typically used by qualitative researchers. Number one is triangulation. Triangulation is the process of corroborating evidence from different individuals or methods of data collection in description and themes in qualitative research. The inquirer examines its information source and finds evidence to support a theme. This ensures that the study will be accurate because the information draws on multiple sources of information, individuals, or processes. In this way, it encourages the researchers to develop a report that is both accurate and credible. Number two is member checking. Member checking is a process in which the researchers ask one or more participants in the study to check the accuracy of the account. This check involves taking the findings back to participants and asking them about the accuracy of the report. You ask participants about many aspects of the study, such as whether the description is complete and realistic, if the themes are accurate to include, and if the interpretation are fair, representative. And the last is research. Researchers may also ask a person outside the project to conduct a thorough review of the study and report back in writing the strength and weakness of the project. This is the process of conducting an external audit. External audit, in which a researcher hires or obtains the service of an individual outside the study to review different aspects of the research. The auditor reviews the project and writes of the communicates and evaluation of the study. This audit may occur about, during, and at the conclusion of the study. An auditor typically asks questions such as those mentioned by Swan and Halpern. Now, one is, are the findings grounded in the data? Are inference logical? Can inquiry, decision, and methodological shift be justified? What is the degree of researcher's bias? And the last, what strategies are used for increased credibility? Okay, maybe enough for me. Thanks for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.